Welcome, everyone, to the Better Love Movement podcast, where you will finally learn how to intentionally do dating and relationships right. My name is Anita Stoudemire, and I'm a licensed professional therapist and your personal love mentor. I've worked with thousands of singles and couples, giving them the skills needed to attract and keep the amazing love they desire. It's my heart's work to help people to get the skills needed to not only become the very best versions of themselves, but to help them grow and evolve emotionally and relationally. You can absolutely have the romantic relationship of your dreams. Come and let me show you how. Hello, everyone, and welcome back again this week for the Better Love Movement podcast. So this week we are in episode 115, and this week's episode is entitled How to Cope with Being Ghosted. So today I am talking to Mary Jo Rapini, practicing psychotherapist, author, and speaker. Let me tell you a little bit about Mary Jo. So she is a practicing psychotherapist with a private practice in Houston, Texas, and an author whose mission is to build and encourage healthy, strong relationships, beginning with the most important relationship of all, the one with yourself. She is also a contributing expert at Fox.26 with Ask Mary Jo. Mary Jo has been featured on CNN, TLC, Discovery Health, and the Steve Harvey Show, and Dateline NBC. Mary Jo believes that every relationship you will ever have depends upon your ability to understand and get along with yourself. Welcome, Mary Jo.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I'm so excited about being here and talking with you and your followers today.
Yes, thank you so much. I found you through your guest appearances on several podcasts, but one specifically called the Roommates Podcast. And I was just blown away with the advice that you were sharing about dating and relationships. I've also subscribed to your YouTube channel, and I know you're a practicing psychotherapist in private practice, but how did you come to a place where you decided to create this worldwide platform to share your knowledge?
Well, what ended up happening, as Anita, is the more I was able to give and counsel couples and really individuals about themselves, the more that seemed to turn on people who were listening, because many times we hear about what we're supposed to do, how guys are supposed to date, how women are supposed to date, but very rarely do we grow up in homes that teach us that stuff. So because I was out there and able to teach and able to educate in that format, I just loved it. And it really has helped me not only empower individuals, but couples, and help them create a marriage they love being part of.
Awesome. I know for me, as a practicing therapist, couples therapy is also my specialty, and I also specialize in working with women on a variety of different issues. But what I love about having my platform online is I'm able to kind of broaden my reach. So,
Right.
yeah, beyond my little city, beyond my little state, I get to kind of broaden my reach all over the world. So that's kind of cool.
Yes. And that is so cool, because you're not only hearing from people in your community, you're hearing from people all over the world.
Yep.
And depending on your culture and where you're raised and how you're raised, it has a huge influence on what you do in life, how you relate to others and love others.
Right. So it is neat. I agree. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about dating for my lady listeners. So most of my listeners of the podcast are ladies, and we talk about all things feminine energy. We talk about, just how to maintain that feminine side of ourselves and staying on our side of the fence. So a lot of my lady listeners, they've been struggling with online dating in particular, and these connections that they make that really don't go anywhere. They often say, we had a really great first date and then the guy ghosted them. So what's your advice on how to deal with this?
Well, and ghosting is terrible. And when you are ghosted, I think what happens a lot of times is common socialization is like, just get over it or move on. But for many people, if you've been with someone a long time, and it's not just the first date, but it's
Right.
several dates into it, and you start telling your friends about them. These
Hmm.
people, sometimes the ghosters will lead you up to a point, like they'll say, oh, you're perfect, and they give you all these positives, so you start believing it. And then what happens is when they disappear, first of all, you're worried about them, and secondly, you usually start saying, was it me? What
Right.
did I do? And
Right.
then there is no good way to grieve that. And
Mhm.
so, because basically you thought this person was with you, so there's no closure. And I
Right.
think the lack of closure is what really hurts so many people.
Right. Right. One of the things, so I did an episode on ghosting, and I want to say it was like 40 episodes ago. It's been a long time. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, but one of the things that I do encourage my ladies to always remain is, very confident, very sure of themselves,
Hmm.
and to really understand that it's not a reflection on them. It's a reflection on the person doing the ghosting.
That's
So,
right. And that's
yeah,
so important, Anita, when they're grieving it, because
right.
I think a lot for most women, we're more involved in our relationship. So
Hmm.
it's only natural. We take more of the blame when something happens. But this has nothing to do with what you did. It
Right.
mostly is the ghoster's inability to be emotionally mature and say with their words what they're feeling. And
Right.
because they don't have that breadth or that understanding of themselves, they just split because it's easier. The one thing I will tell women is if you are ghosted, then basically it was a red flag for you, and to
Mm.
be aware in the future that this was not a person who was emotionally mature. This
Right.
person could have never formed a relationship with you. You could have been 100% perfect. I
Mm.
mean, I see women all the time that are, to me, they're perfect, but
Right.
the person with them is so fragile, such a low self-esteem that they can't step up and tell the person how they feel.
Right. And I've also said that the person who ghosts, that if they came back or you got in a relationship with them, that
Mhm.
ghost would have turned into stonewalling. It would have turned into some other form of emotional abuse. So I'm like, consider yourself lucky that that
You are so spot on with that. The other thing is I don't know, you may have seen different with this, but
happened.
anybody who comes in as client and tells me, I got ghosted, I'll say, tell me about other times when this person was flaky and
Mhm.
you let it go. And there is always a history.
Yep.
So what I want to encourage your followers with today is when their partner or their date is flaky, do not ignore it and do not tolerate it. Tell
Exactly.
them, listen, I'm not, my time is precious just like yours. And the fact that you couldn't call me and tell me you were going to be late or you weren't going to show up, that's a red flag to me. I
Hmm.
Many times what we do as women is we've been trained, well, I don't want to scare him off. Forget about that.
Yep.
If he's that flaky, then you should scare him off. He's not gonna.
Exactly.
He doesn't have the depth you need. He can't withstand the wind. So,
Right.
if something is flimsy, it's flimsy, and it's much better up front than have it just disappear with the wind on some occasion that he or she couldn't step up.
Right, right. And I agree. I agree with everything you just said. So we're looking for someone who's mature. I've done a whole episode on what maturity, emotional maturity looks like in a partner. We're looking for someone who's mature, someone who's
Mhm.
emotionally available, someone who can communicate their feelings. That's what you're looking for.
Right. And I don't know how much you've talked with your clients in the last couple of weeks, but I know this pandemic has changed people
Oh,
because
yeah.
basically, so we've all been in lockdown. So everybody hooks up with somebody, and that person becomes vital to their existence, because this online person that you may have never met in person, this is the only person you've seen virtually and talked to for many of my clients. And so
Right.
late in the night, you've had these long conversations. And I think on that level, if you think about that person disappearing, that's a terrifying thought.
Right.
And many times after the woman, or, you know, especially the ladies are ghosted, what happens is they go through this, you know, you're so shocked, you can't
Yeah.
believe that your gut didn't feel it. And so you lose trust in yourself, and you lose confidence, and it's more at that point what you start telling yourselves that makes the grief
Right.
worse, like, you know, I didn't see this coming, I must be a terrible judge of character, I'm not what they're looking for, they were just using me, or the other random tapes you will tell yourself. That's what really hurts the most.
Right. Right. And ladies, you all know how I feel about the self-talk. We've got to remember we're talking to our 5-year-old self or our 8-year-old self. And so you've got to be gentle. You've got to realize that, remember, this really isn't about you. This is about the person who's doing it. Like
Right.
they've got something going on that, they're not mature, or they don't know how to communicate how they feel or what's going on inside of them. So please don't take it upon you to think you did anything wrong.
That's right. And even if you did do something wrong, because we're fallible and
Yeah,
we're all human,
right.
partner doesn't have the self-worth or the self-esteem, or, you know, value their own time and self enough to say that hurt me,
Mm,
or what you did made me feel angry, then this relationship is not healthy anyway. So
right.
once again, we're going to go back to the relationship you have with yourself. Do you value yourself enough
Mm,
to demand that in a relationship? Do
that's
you have enough confidence to say, I am a person who can tell another person honestly what I'm feeling. So if
mm-hmm.
I'm with someone and they're not able to do that, then I'm always going to be running after them saying,
Right.
are you okay? Are you sure? Are you
Yeah.
sure? Okay.
So you have a video on your YouTube channel that's all about what dating like a grown-up looks like. Please share with my listeners a little bit about that.
Okay, so this is the article, and I made a video about it for Fox 26,
Mm-hmm.
because many of the Fox 26 followers were saying that since they've been dating during the pandemic and they've been meeting people online, they've noticed that people are just like, they're so casual, they're not at all like, they show up, but they're not at all really prepared to have a date, and
Mm,
they're not the caliber that most of these women that have been talking to us via Fox 26, and sometimes a few men have
mm,
said, I can't believe it. Like, these people are taking my precious time and they don't know how to date. They're like
right.
little boys or little girls trying to fulfill a role.
Right. And I'm seeing that also. Like I do a lot of my own data and my own research with the apps. So I go
Oh,
on
yeah.
the app, I create a profile, and I like to see what the statistical numbers are in terms of viable partners. I like to interact with people through the apps. That way I have firsthand experience of what's out there, what people are doing, and I've even noticed that. I've noticed that in the app dating that I'm just doing my own research on. And I'm thinking, these people are like 40. Like,
Yes, and that's exactly what they say. Like, it has nothing to do with your chronological age. You
no.
can be 40, 50 on a second marriage And it's like, did you learn nothing? Like, I
Right.
just want a grown up. I don't want a grown up body with a 10-year-old's mind.
Right. And I am seeing that. It's so odd to me.
Right.
And yeah, so I 100% agree that I don't know what's happened. I don't know if it's been in the last year or if it's been longer. Um, but I am seeing that also. And it's a little disconcerting because I'm thinking, okay, we have to reach an emotional maturity to have a good healthy relationship. And so if there's all these people out here who are not that, it's like, what?
Right. Like people that are breadcrumbing and
Right.
ghosting and stashing. Well, the first thing is that I tell couples, mind your manners. If you're
Mhm.
going on a date, you know, how you treat other people matters. And when you act like a jerk, your date sees right through that. They know you're insecure and they
Yeah.
know you have issues. And they may not tell you that directly, but basically you are teaching people what's going on inside you by the way you treat them.
I
So
agree.
put your phone away. And if you go to a restaurant or someplace that someone waits on you, say thank you. Open doors when you
Mm,
can. Things like that. It sounds old fashioned, but manners make a huge impression.
I agree. I agree. Any other tips you have? That's a good
Yes.
one.
Be in control of your emotions.
Hmm.
If you go off on rages or you start talking about politics and you lose your self control, you're telling your partner that you are not in control of what you're feeling.
Mm,
That's a really big red flag. And what's interesting is you might think if let's say you're a guy and you've always been told that's macho to say how you feel outright, not if it's aggressive or hostile. That's
mhm.
thought of as being out of control, and your
Right.
partner's not going to want to go on a second date with you.
Right. Right. Ooh, these are
And
some great
thirdly,
tips.
should
Hmm.
we just keep going?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Thirdly, it's be open with your values and be curious about your partner.
Hmm.
I know you've seen this, Anita. Like you'll go out to a restaurant and the whole time one person is talking
Right.
and the other one is just like nodding their head and
Hmm.
maybe eating their meal, and the other one just doesn't stop talking. When you're emotionally mature, when you're out with someone, there's a sharing of conversation.
Hmm.
You say something, they say something, you listen, you ask questions, you're curious.
Right. But it's interesting. All these tips are great. All of these tips are wonderful. What I have seen consistently is that because so many people who are dating, they really have no real intention, like where it's going. I think that's where some of the bad behavior is coming from. Like it's so haphazard.
It's so haphazard and they've gotten lazy. Like, let's
Yes.
just hang out on the
Yes.
sofa and watch Netflix. And both people do it. I've even seen this lazy or lack of what I call lack of self-motivation
Mm.
as far as their relationships. Like, it's so much easier to just live together than
Mm.
to actually take classes, maybe pre-marriage education,
Yep.
maybe make a plan. Okay, in a year, I would like to date you. And then in
Mm-hmm.
a year, I would like to be engaged, to be married, and
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to take classes. When I see someone do that now, when I see someone be in control of themselves, I just think to myself, wow, what a confident person. I don't want them
Mm-hmm.
to rush because that's another bad sign of a emotionally immature person. I don't want to rush. I don't want to rush
Right.
to sex. I don't want to rush to secure anything. I
Right.
want to understand that we're building a friendship. And so
Right.
it takes stages, but I
Mhm.
want somebody who cares, who's not
Right.
just apathetic.
Right. And see, and on my platform, I teach women to require exclusivity and commitment at some point in time. Like that's where we're all headed. Now,
Oh,
there
wow.
are different levels of commitment. Some of my ladies want to be in a long term committed relationship, some want to live together, most want to get married. And
Mhm.
so we are very intentional over here. Like we are not haphazardly dating. So,
I love it. Well, and a lot of I think especially men misjudge that the reason a woman wants to get married is for financial reasons. And
mhm,
financial is a big deal if you're going to have a
mhm.
family.
Yep.
Somebody has to understand finances, and there
Right.
has to be some sort of a goal of maintaining your finances and having
Mhm.
a budget. That's very important. But what men need to understand more is in a marriage, when there's, or any relationship, when there's children, it's unhealthy for the children not to have their parents married. And the
Right.
reason is because people who aren't married and have babies, there's absolutely no protection for those babies.
Exactly.
And that's why
Exactly.
we have such a huge deficit. Like when I look at different cultures and I see what happens to people who are poor, when you go through the actual demographics of, and you start looking at finances, the majority of people who are struggling don't have a stable marriage. They
Right.
don't have a marriage. So there's nobody protecting those babies.
And that's what
And
we
that's our
believe in.
future.
That's
That's our
right.
future, right? So
That's
I
right.
I'm very easy with women when I love it when you tell me that most of the women are intentional about dating
Mhm.
and they are looking for a husband and
Mhm.
a father, like someone who will be a good dad, because that's what we all should look for, really. If we're
That's
going to
right.
get married, we should want someone that we think is going to be a good parent and a good partner.
That's it. That's what I'm instilling in all of the ladies that I coach. I am saying we need to be intentional because we've got to have good, healthy, strong families because that's the cornerstone of our communities. And if
Yes.
we don't have good families, the community crumbles, the whole society crumbles. So
That's
we
so true. I love that.
yeah,
And it's important. And I know there's good men out there who are intentional. I know there's men who want that. But unfortunately, men are not always encouraging with other men. And they'll say things like, "Oh, be a man." Like you don't have to
right.
marry her. It's kind of gotten confused with what a macho person is. Like,
Right.
what is a man? I think men are confused about it too.
They are. They are.
Yeah,
That's a whole nother episode, let me tell you.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I just want to say thank you so much, Mary Jo, for joining me on the podcast today. It has been wonderful. It's everything I thought it would be. Your insight is great. And I know my lady listeners truly enjoyed this episode and enjoyed hearing all about, being a grown up and being out here dating. And I'm encouraging them to also be a grown up too. So that's really important. Is there a product or a service that you want to tell us about somewhere that you want my listeners to go or check out?
Well, I would love them to check out my YouTube.
Okay.
It's Reaction Reset. It's Mary Jo Rapini. And on there, I have relationship hacks. And so
Awesome.
in lieu of therapy, they're like assignments.
Mm-hmm.
And if you download them, I kept them very inexpensive. They're $1.99. They're
Mm.
like worksheets for you and your partner. If you're single, then you'll want to download it and do it yourself. Then when you go to a therapist, take the worksheet along because you will have a guide of what you actually want to work on. Many times when we get clients in, and I'm sure Anita, you see this too, they don't know what's going on. So it takes
Right.
a couple sessions to get at it. But if you take this worksheet in that you've completed, you can say, this is the area I really need help. And then the therapist has something right away with some meat in it that they can start going through and help you with.
Okay, awesome. I love that. I love that. So, ladies, if you are not subscribed to the podcast as of yet, please do me the biggest favor ever and subscribe so that you can be alerted. You're going to hit that alert button and you will be alerted every Monday when a new episode gets uploaded. Do me a favor and rate and review the podcast. That helps me out so much to continue to keep creating the podcast and making great content. If you have a question you would like to have answered on the podcast, you can send it to me in an email at info@betterlovemovement.com. You can also reach out to me on my website, betterlovemovement.com, to get more information on love mentoring, other services, all of the new products that are there. And please, please, please join me Monday, March 1st. 8:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the book launch party. We are having a book launch party on IG Live Monday, March 1st at 8:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to have a blast. I'm going to give away a bunch of stuff. I'm going to give away signed copies of the book and coaching sessions and all kinds of other fun stuff. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us this week. And as always, stay open to love. Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. If you are enjoying this podcast, please leave me a 5-star rating and review. Your ratings and reviews help me to continue to bring you more great content. Head on over to YouTube and check out the Better Love Movement channel. There's more video content there, and you can subscribe to be notified when a new video is posted. If you have a question that you would like to have answered on the podcast or in a YouTube video, please send it to me at info@betterlovemovement.com. You can also connect with me directly on the Magnify app to have your dating and relationship questions answered. That's MAGNIFI, and it's available on iOS and Android. You get your first 5 minutes for free. So give me a call and let's chat.